Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Good morning, Alaska, and welcome to the Michael Dukes Show, Wednesday edition of the big radio show, broadcasting live across the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find links to the audio-only sound stream and, of course, the podcast, links to our social medias, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, where we simulcast the show every day. And, of course, broadcasting live around the world on the interwebs, around the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator. Okay, you ready to go? We've got a full boat of stuff today to talk about. In hour one, we're going to be talking some local politics with Michael Bowles, who is running for election in the MatSu, running for the MatSu Assembly this fall. Now the MatSu has they've aligned all their elections now, right? Because they were pushing to not have a municipal and then a general. I think this is the first year that they've aligned them to where they're all in one. Anyway, we'll find out from Michael. It's been a hot minute since I've been in the MatSu trying to figure all that stuff out. And we'll talk with him here in just a second. In hour two, we've got some other discussions, including the fact that the superintendent of the Anchorage School District has, he went full-on social justice warrior, mad. He lost his mind. He seems to have forgotten who he works for, and is going to perpetuate some of the lies and stuff. We got a lot to talk about in hour two as well. So it's a full show today. So should we just jump into it? I think we should just jump right into it. Let's make this thing happen. There's a bunch of buttons here, and I'm excited to push them all. So let's start off here and see what we can find. Michael Bowles joins us this morning to discuss his candidacy and more. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for reaching out to the show. I'll be honest with you. I have been remiss in getting, I've reached out to some of the different, nonprofits and public service things and stuff like that. But I keep forgetting about the elections that are coming up because there's a million things going on. Now, first and foremost, remind me, they did pass that consolidation, did they not? Or is that coming? I can't remember. A lot has happened since I left the MatSu.
Correct. This is the last year for the cycles, the old term cycles, linking up with the new term cycles. So we're on the regular election cycle, which is November 4th. But these, so District 1, District 2, and District 4 out here in the borough, MatSu borough, these terms specifically that we're running for are 1-year terms. And so if elected, we'll essentially have to turn around if we want to be reelected and run for the next term, which is a 4-year term. So once these elections are done, then all 7 districts will be on that same cycle, which coincides with the state and federal elections.
A single election, right? Rather
Correct.
than having multiple, which I never understood that, but it's good. Well, Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself. First of all, if you want to find out more and you want to skip ahead and get straight to the meat of things or anything else, you can go to Elect Michael Bowles, BOWLES.com. electmichaelbowles.com. You can go over there and you can take a look at his website. And I posted links up in the chat room for that. So if you want to go check it out, you can. But first of all, give us a little bit of your background, Michael. What makes you qualified to run for the borough assembly? Says the guy who ran for the borough assembly back in the day was probably completely unqualified. But what makes you qualified to run for the
I guess I'm qualified just because I'm an air breather, right?
Pretty much.
So if we look across our country, we've got, anyways, that's a different discussion. So what got me involved out here is, I've always been kind of one of these people in the background that's real loud, kind of a loudmouth, if you will, on social media. I'm very conservative, and I've got some opinions as far as things that I've seen happen over the last 10, 15 years in local and state politics. And so the last year, what was going on around here, specifically in our community area, is out here in the MatSu borough, and I think there's some other boroughs that have these special use districts. And what these we call them SPUDs. What these SPUDs do is essentially create zoning laws in communities. And some communities, that's great. Our community, I'm out of the South Kinnick River community, and we like our privacy. We like our personal property rights. We like to not be infringed upon. And so a group of us caught wind that there was a small group of community members who were pushing for a SPUD, just due to some other issues that were happening. And we felt uninformed. We felt like we weren't involved. So my day job, I'm the executive administrator for the Board of Pharmacy with the state of Alaska, and that job takes me out of the state often for national conferences and those sorts of things. So I can't always attend meetings. So part of that's on me, and part of that's on some of us that don't always go to the community council meetings. But essentially, so caught wind of this. So that's really what got me involved. So I reached out to our local planning department, spoke with the staff there, and I asked them if we really don't want this SPUD to happen, how do we kill it? And they explained what we would need to do. Basically, we'd have to vote on it and have a resolution passed at the community council level, and then that resolution would need to go before the assembly. And so I essentially led the charge on that and made that happen. While at the same time, I was submitting applications to get on both City of Palmer and borough commissions and boards, and so I was placed on the Fish and Wildlife Commission with the MatSu Borough. And so those simultaneous events really kind of, I guess, supercharged me, if you will. And learning of our current assemblyman's departure, he has decided not to run for that extra year, not stay in this office, this seat for that extra year. I don't politically, I don't align with the current assembly member, and I think we need a change, and I think we need a conservative change. And so that's my goal, is to fill that seat and put a conservative voice for District 1 on the assembly.
And I'll be honest with you, you're singing my song here. One of the primary things that I was on the assembly for back in Fairbanks was specifically private property rights. I was tired of the borough trying to dictate to people what they could do with their own lands, and then of course holding a gun to their head and making them pay all the taxes on their lands that they couldn't do anything with. Right? It was just it's one of the most infuriating things to me that I can think of. Tell us a little bit about where you come from, where you grew up. I mean, are you from here? Did you is Alaska your second home? Give us a little bit of background on you and where you come from.
Sure. So I am a transplant. I was in the Army. The Army brought me up here in 2007. So my background, I was raised in the Army. My dad was in the Army, and so I grew up all over. And so I had always, so way back when in the 80s, we were stationed in New York, at West Point, New York, and a family friend, they were from Kenai, Alaska, and they would go home every year, and then they would bring salmon back. And I was really intrigued with that. And they would also take me on camping trips. And so I was really infatuated with this particular family out of Kenai that I got to know. And so at a young age, at 8 years old, I always had a dream of wanting to go to Alaska. And fast forward to joining the Army, I had put in multiple requests to get to Alaska, and it was finally approved in 2007. I moved here. After being here about a year, I met my wife, and basically she said, if you marry me, you're staying in Alaska. And I said, that sounds great to me. And so had one more tour, had to go to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, ended up getting out of the Army and coming back here for good 2013. So that's what brought me to Alaska, and what has kept me in Alaska is just I've been all over the world. I've from the Middle East to Europe, the entire East Coast. I've been to 46 different states. I only have 4 more to check off on my list, and I can tell you from my experience that this is the most free place in the entire world. This is the last hope for liberty, and I just love it here. I love the lifestyle here. Every place has its issues. Here, of course, in Alaska, we have the darkness in the wintertime. So we hike up our vitamin D, and we power through it by playing outside, So I love it here. And I in my mind, we need to do everything we can to sustain our personal liberties, and keep Alaska free. So I guess, okay, so I'll continue. So
go ahead.
So now, fast forward, I guess, rewind a little bit to 2013. I got on with the state of Alaska, and I've been in multiple positions with the state of Alaska. I started off with the Division of Healthcare Services, working in assisted living facilities, and then I moved on to state OSHA, where I was a health consultant. I guess industrial hygienist was my actual title, but it was really health consultant. I wasn't on the enforcement side, but I would go around and do walkthroughs on high hazard facilities and assist them with bringing the facilities into compliance with health and science regulatory guidelines. Took a 3-year break from the state of Alaska. My wife and I had actually started our own business. We were working through the Dave Ramsey steps with our finances, and our side gig blew up, and we were doing really well with it. And I also used that opportunity to complete my graduate degree with my GI Bill. So running my own business, completing my graduate degree between 2017 and 2020. COVID hit, put our business on hold. It was food service industry business. Got back on with the state 2020 as the investigator for the Board of Pharmacy, and then I was promoted up into this position in 2022, and here I am ever since. So
a little bit of a exciting background here. Yeah, COVID kind of changed everything for everybody, didn't it? It was a whole different deal. All right, well, we're talking with Michael Bowles, who is a candidate for the MatSu District 1 and the MatSu Borough Assembly. We're going to talk with him about what are the big issues that are facing it. Obviously, private property rights are near and dear to his heart, so he's already a kindred spirit for me. And we're gonna continue that discussion here in just a second, but we are close to the break, so we'll go ahead and pick it up right now, and we'll be back with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio, back with more, and Michael Bowles for the MatSu Borough Assembly right after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Well, that was weird. Sorry about that. I was having a problem. My stuff didn't go to commercial break like it was supposed to. I don't know what just happened, but something didn't happen properly. All right, we'll check it. All right. Let me look at that real quick here while I'm here. No. Okay. All right. Michael Bowles, our guest here. Sorry, Michael, I got a little distracted. Boy, this is what happens when you don't have an engineer, programming producer. It's just all you. This is what goes on. All right. Let me go through some of the things in the chat room. Brian says the Spud seems to pop up in the hook every few years. He lives out in Wasilla Fishhook.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. You always get a bunch of do-gooders who, moved into your area because they like the way it was, and then one day they decide they want to change it, and they change it for everybody, not just for themselves. That's
Correct.
That's part of the big problem, right, Michael? I mean, that's it's the people who get a good deal on a piece of property because there's a airfield right next to them, and then 2 years later they silently put a petition out there to eliminate the airfield because of the plane noise. Well, you caveat emptor, right? This is part of the problem.
Correct. So one of the driving factors of the group here was a homesteader. A homesteader has a large lot of property, and they have since moved out of the area. They're still local. They're here in Palmer, but they're getting a little older, and living out here is harder. It is, and that's one of the things we appreciate about it. But he's selling off parcels. And so he's selling off 10-acre parcels, and somebody bought a 10-acre parcel and wanted to subdivide it into 10 1-acre parcels. And that irritated some people. Well, there's code that exists that requires or that limits the breakdown of property to 0.92 acres for septic systems and wells. So there's already code in place. The borough's already addressed this, as far as safety and water tables and ensuring people have enough water going to their specific wells. I think that there's just this idea that, like you said, sometimes people feel like they need to control other people, which I completely disagree with. We need to control our own lives, focus on our own lives. And if there are true infringements, if there's really things going on that are health hazards and those, environmental hazards, which were some complaints as well, then, there are things in place to address those. So DEC has environmental crimes unit, right? So if somebody is spilling hazmat into an adjoining property that may affect your well water, then contact environmental crimes. Don't try to, our 22 miles of community, don't try to restrict the rest of us that are doing the right things, by
wait. You mean actually punish the people who are doing things wrong instead of placing blanket penalties on all of society?
Or utilize the code that's already in place. Smart people, along the way have put code in place, and those parameters are there to protect property rights and to protect infringements. And the code that exists for the Matsu borough is actually pretty darn solid. If you look at it, there's nuisance code that addresses garbage, junk cars, and there's noise code for people that are blasting music or shooting guns at 2 a.m., which happens. And so rather than try to restrict what other people are doing, work with the code that's in place and try to and talk to your neighbors, and maybe have a conversation and before trying to involve the government and to fix your problems.
Well, it's an interesting problem. Like I said, there's always do-gooders out there that can always do better than you at running your life. We know that. That's a common problem. All right, we're about 5 seconds out. Here we go. We're about to rejoin the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Let's do it.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
It's untrue. I'm a total angel. Never made anybody upset. Welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show. We're broadcasting live across the state, ready to go for this beautiful Wednesday morning. Michael Bowles is our guest. He is a candidate for the Matsu Borough Assembly in District 1. That election coming up in October, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Michael? That's the date of the actual election?
So early voting starts October 20th, and in person is November 4th.
Okay.
And I will say, please, if you're a conservative, if you have concerns with what's going on in District 1 or across the borough, this is an off-cycle election. This is the last off-cycle election for our borough. Please get out and vote. I cannot stress that enough. We have a very, very low turnout for voters traditionally here in the borough, and especially in off-year cycles. So the one thing that I will stress, and I'm going to be stressing throughout my campaign, is that if you really want change, if you really want a conservative in that seat, you have to get off your couch. You have to come vote that one day, and it's gonna, and so if I could stress one thing, come out and vote between October 20th, early voting, or on November 4th.
Michael, you and I don't know each other, right? I mean, you reached out to me, wanted to get on the program. I think this is an awesome idea. I want to do it. Let me tell you, the question's already been raised twice in the chat room. And it was actually one of the first questions that I had in my mind after going to your website before inviting you on the program to look at it. And you sound like a very conservative guy, property rights. I mean, you're chanting my song and everything else, but basically, I think the first thing that I looked at was, well, here you are, you're worked for the government for most of your majority of your career. I mean, you've worked, it's OSHA and some of these other things, and people might go, well, how can you be conservative when you're out there telling people and businesses how to do telling them what to do? You're working for the man. How can you be against the man when you're working for the man? So, I mean, I think that's going to be a big question for anybody with any kind of analytical thought, right out of the gate. So can you answer that for me?
Absolutely. We need conservatives in government. So the reason I have decided to stick with the government, like I said earlier, my wife and I started a business, and yes, it was affected by COVID, but we could have picked it back up. I chose to come back to the government. What happened in 2020? We all have our opinions on what happened on the federal level. I won't get into that. But as a conservative, I just felt like I need to get back into the government, and so how do we make change as an unelected official? We go in and we create that change. We remove bureaucracies. We create efficiencies. We change the system from the inside. And I know that sounds maybe kind of strong, but if we don't do it as conservatives, the left is going to do it. The left already they've been doing it. I mean, they've been doing it in our school systems, at the college level, university level. They've been doing it at every level in every area throughout our country. And so we as conservatives need to be doing the same thing. We have to be there. I worked with a person one time, and I wasn't thinking like this back then. This is probably right when I got on with the state, 2013, and I was kind of complaining about things that were going on at that time under that administration before Trump had been elected. And he had told me about a person he went to college with, and that person specifically went to college to earn a degree so that they could work for a company and change that company's culture. And it just kind of hit me that, that's what we need to be doing. The left is doing it. The left has been doing it. And we as conservatives need to do that as well. I never planned on running for office. This is a recent decision in the last year. Things just lined up for that. I like to say I'm not a politician. I am now, apparently. And in speaking with and speaking with people, I guess the best term I can use for myself is I plan to be a people's politician. Right? I'm running on my character. I'm running on my values. I'm not running on anything but that, and those are conservative values. And in my opinion, if you're listening and you thought about running for the government because you're a conservative, it's difficult sometimes. The bureaucracy sometimes is hard to get through. Right now, I'm blessed with a great division. I've got great leadership where I'm at. I'm in the best unit that I've been in since working for the state of Alaska. But it hasn't always been like that in other places where I've worked in the state. So
Well, I don't think I don't think you're wrong in saying that if we need, we can't just abandon as conservatives, we can't
Mhm.
just abandon the playing field
Correct.
to the progressives, right? To the more liberal folks, to the bigger government folks.
Yep.
And maybe that's what it feels like. Oh, you can't be a conservative. You can't work in government and be a conservative, says people on both sides of the aisle, right?
Yep.
That's the liberals don't want you in there and the conservatives don't believe you should be in there. But you're right in some ways, and that's a good way to put it. You have to change the culture from the inside, and the best way to do it, or have to change the culture, and the best way to do it sometimes is from the inside.
Mhm.
And as long as you can hold your metal, you're okay. You know what I mean? And hold to that principle. That's the thing. And so having conservatives inside those entities is not necessarily a bad thing. So it's a great opportunity. Michael, talk to me about what you see as the biggest issues facing the borough right now. Give me the top three things you're looking at the borough level that you're going to be facing in the next 5 years, let's just say, and that we should really be focusing on, and what your kind of solution is for those things.
So I'll start with the good. The good is this shoring up of Port McKenzie. I can't tell you how excited I am about this as a resident. Even if I hope to get elected. That's what But if the amount of effort that our legislators are putting into this, both on the federal level and state level, I'm watching this thing happen with the LNG project coming down. That's gonna rip right through the borough, and I don't know if people really understand how much that's going to positively affect us here. If they can actually get this rail spur, to Port McKenzie, completed at the same time, I mean, this LNG pipeline that's going to come through, there's going to be tariffs attached, and so we're going to have revenue coming in from it that, in my mind, right? Maybe I'm looking through rose-colored glasses, but I see lower taxes. I see, infrastructure being paid for through tariffs on industry, right? And I see more jobs. I see more blue collar jobs. I see welders. I see people with nice new homes that they can afford now because they're working and they're just making gobs of money. That's what I see. And it's well supported. It's very well supported, all the way from the Trump administration all the way through our legislation, as far as the borough legislators, I'll say. Unfortunately, there are those outside of the borough that are coming against this, and I hope that they will see that this is a good thing for the entire state and their areas as well. It's not just a borough issue or a slope issue. So the second thing I would say is this fuel excise tax. There's a 7-cent fuel excise tax that was proposed. It was proposed officially last night at the assembly meeting. And that was a marathon of a meeting. I don't think the meeting got done until about 10:45. So that's concerning. Our property taxes are already just they're too high. In my opinion, property taxes shouldn't exist. It's theft, right? People shouldn't have to rent their homes from the government. That's I mean, talk about an overstep from the government and an infringement from the government. Property taxes is at the top of the list there. Fuel excise tax on top of that. So the borough just went through and raised everybody's property assessments, which in turn raises our property taxes. They're saying, well, we lowered the mill rate a little bit. Sure. But if you exponentially increase our property taxes 2 or 3-fold and slightly lower the mill rate, you're still raising our property taxes.
The net gain. There's a net gain, right?
Correct.
We'll cut your mill rate by a quarter and then double your property tax. Guess
Correct.
what? Guess
Correct.
what?
And this all happened while the budget talks were happening, right? So, it was transparent, if you will, right? It was irritating, but it was transparent as far as the property taxes, property assessments. And then they finish up budget talks, and all of a sudden, this 7 cents fuel excise tax is proposed on top of this. And the idea is to target, and it says it right in the literature, that this is taken almost word for word from the Anchorage 10-cent fuel excise tax from 2017. And all of us that were paying attention to that, what did we see happen with that? Nothing. they did absolutely nothing with. Well, they did a lot with it, but it wasn't it wasn't used for what it was promoted for. We still see mismanagement in Anchorage, and I'm not saying that our borough is going to mismanage anything. We actually have a fantastic borough manager. He does a fantastic job. However, I mean, tax upon tax upon tax. I mean, come on. When does it stop? When does the assembly and the borough decide, let's have some fiscal patience. Let's just relax for a second. We just raised property taxes. Let's let that settle. And then see where we're at in a few years before we consider another tax. I think fiscal responsibility is paramount here versus just taxing upon tax for, the intent from this fuel excise tax is to go towards paying off, road bonds, right? But at last night's meeting, we heard immediately discussions from assembly members go, well, if this passes, we can use it towards such and such.
We could spend it on something else. Right.
Exactly.
That's the bait and switch. I mean, that's the classic bait and switch, right? We want to do X. And when we do X, we'll use it for this purpose. And then 6 months down the road, it says, well, now that we've got all this new money coming in from what we just did, now we can use it on this other thing. Oh, I thought we were going to build. I thought we were going to fix the buildings and fix the roads. Oh, no, that's deferred maintenance. We can just do that later. Don't even, I mean, but this is a classic example. Government, by its very nature, inexorably grows. That's its nature. That's what it wants to do. I mean, that's the frog in the, why do you sting me? Because that's what I do. Right? Why does the scorpion sting the frog? Because that's what I do. That's what I am. And that's what government is. Doesn't make it evil. It just means that's its nature. And we have got to constantly hold back the reins of government because that's all they want to do is grow it's mission creep, right? You're in the military. It's mission creep. That's exactly what it is.
So I guess my third would be, protecting property rights, and personal liberties. That's really one of my main platforms. That's what started this whole thing for me. Years ago, I've been paying attention for years on this issue. And like I said earlier on, I've been for years a loudmouth, if you will, on social media and other issues. I've shown up to meetings and I've expressed my opinions, but I wasn't a doer. Now I'm a doer. So that's my intent is to ensure that people that own property out here, there's no more infringing code placed on their property. If builders want to build, let them build. Why should the government get in the way of people building homes for people?
Right.
So if people want to have 15 chickens on their property, let people have 15 chickens on their property. Why is it the government's business? If the community that they're in has an issue with chickens, well, that community has the opportunity to form an HOA or create covenants, right? And that's where it should lie at. It should lie at the community level. It shouldn't be the borough dictating what people can and can't do on their property and the privacy in their own property. Obviously, unless they're infringing upon other people, right? If they're
right, that's always the caveat, right?
Correct.
I mean, you could do anything you want as long as you're not hurting somebody else's or infringing on somebody else's rights.
Correct.
You want to have a junkyard in your backyard, have a junkyard in your backyard, as long as you're not leaking contaminants into your neighbor's water table, or you're not bleeding over onto, some way onto your neighbor's yard with your junk and your stuff. I mean, that's just, whatever it is. Just be a good neighbor. Don't be a douche. That's the kind of the thing, right? That don't be a douche.
And if I don't want to see it, I'll plant a hedge of trees on my property.
Yeah, exactly. I'll put a fence up on my side. If I don't want to look at your junk, I'll put a fence up on looking the back of my fence on my side, or a hedge of trees, which are prettier than a fence. We all know that that's prettier than a fence,
and they give away free trees every year. So
yeah. Go do it. Go make it happen. Michael Bowles, candidate for District 1 in the MatSu's. We've gotten his 3 big issues out, and we're going to continue to talk with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook if you want to participate during the commercial breaks, and we'll continue just right after this. I'm sorry. Somebody just said something in the chat room. We'll have a conversation about that in a minute. All right, here we go. Back with more right after this. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio.
listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. That was the Welcome Back Cotter theme, in case you guys missed that. That was in case you're old. Yeah, ask Michael. We're gonna ask him that, Melissa. You know that's a standard question. Jeez, although he did kind of jump the shark a little bit on that. He kind of answered that earlier, but we'll get to that question for sure. Kevin McCabe, Representative Kevin McCabe says maybe part of the spending problem that assemblies have is that the boroughs and cities, such as the Muni or the MatSu borough, must budget their revenues into a general fund unless a specific statute or voter approval allows for a dedicated fund. Well, that is part of the problem. But then you also have the same kind of thing that happened, I think, at the state level, where there is no dedicated or designated. I mean, they call them whatever they call them, but there's supposed to be no dedicated funds. And so it all goes into the general fund, and then it becomes a massive tug of war over it. Hey, wait, we put that in for one. No, sorry, can't do that. Right, Mike? I mean, is this what we're talking about?
So that's part of the issue with this fuel excise tax is they're not putting it before the people. Yes, they're putting it. So the assembly members are the ones that are going to vote on this, right? For example, if they were to create, similar to the Kenai Borough or the city of Juneau, a sales tax to specifically target tourists. Juneau, I believe there's a 2 or 3% sales tax in the wintertime, and it elevates, or they're talking about elevating it to an 8%, something along those lines, to specifically target tourists. And Kenai Borough has I believe it's a 3 to 5 or 5% sales tax that because everybody in Alaska goes to Kenai to fish in the summertime. So, but that tax, sales tax, that goes before the people. And then that specific tax, my understanding is that that can be designated towards a specific thing, such as in Wasilla. So Wasilla had a sales tax that went towards the Menard Center. Once the Menard Center was paid off, that sales tax went away. So there can be designated taxes, but they need to be voted on by the people. The problem with this fuel excise tax is it's right now, as it's written, it is a never-ending tax, forever, ever, and amen. So this 7 cents tax will go on until none of us listening exist anymore. So there's no sunset. There's no designation. After a few cycles of assembly people filtering out this tax that goes towards funding things that, I mean, who knows? Everybody, who knows? Who remembers? Then another fuel tax or another type of tax is introduced, and assembly members vote on it. That's the cycle that I'm concerned with. I am of the opinion. I'm not necessarily against taxes. We need roads, right? We need roads. We need potholes filled. We need infrastructure.
Right.
So I'm not ignorant to that. And I do work for the government, and we need funded things. However, it's the tax on the tax on the tax after they just raised our taxes. I mean, when do we get a chance to breathe? When does the government take a second and look at the recent increase on property taxes and say, okay, how much did we bring in after we raised assessments and so I think it's 27 or so % of that property taxes used for roads already. So who's to say that this increase in property assessments that is increasing property taxes isn't enough to cover these road bonds? We don't know because it just happened.
Right. We're immediately jumping into the deep end of the pool here and saying,
Correct.
"Oh, it won't be enough." Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Richard just said, "No." I mean, it was the Wrath of Khan. No. That's why the Butte Salvage Yard exists now. Well, I mean, I don't know if you're making an argument for people not to be able to do what they want on their property, but if they were there and they are on their property and they're not hurting anybody else, none your business. That's pretty much it. Again, as long as they're not, draining sludge into the water table or, acid or oil or whatever, And if they want to live in Junktown, that's their deal, as long as it's on their property, right?
I have to give credit to them recently. So we live on the other side of the river, and they've actually been doing an outstanding job. They've been moving a lot of the vehicles that were there off the salvage yard. And my understanding is I think it may be new ownership. I could be incorrect there, but I recently reached out to them and they removed a car. We just bought an adjoining 5-acre parcel because, quite frankly, we don't want people moving in next to us. So a 5-acre parcel came available. We bought it to extend our little homestead that my wife and I have going here. And there was a broken down car on it and a horse trailer. And so we utilized them and they removed it very inexpensively, $75 to remove a junk car. So,
Right.
but if you're a local in the Butte, I think you'll notice that they really have it. They've been working hard to move all of that metal out of their yard. So,
Well, there's always going to be a complaint about something, Michael. We're going to rejoin here the radio here in just a second.
Okay.
So we'll come back to this. All right, the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's get back to this thing here.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Yep. Not your daddy's talk radio show, nor do I play him on TV. Let's continue on here. Melissa's she wants me to ask the question. So, Michael, I'll ask you the question. When exactly did you lose your mind? That's the question that I ask many first-time politicals. Was there a single, and you kind of talked a little bit about this, that it was the Spud and some other things, but what was that the one thing that pushed you over the edge? Because I remember what it was for me. It was the same kind of thing. It was a private property issue. And I kept thinking, I can yak about this all day on the radio and bitch and complain and do everything else. But if I don't do something about it, who else is there, right? So what was that moment where you went, aha, and said, I'm just going to do it? That sounds like fun. So,
yeah, I think the Spud was the straw. Like I said, for years, I've been complaining. I've been vocal about things. But after being appointed to the Fish and Wildlife Commission, and that was, I guess, that was my dipping the toe in the water moment, if you will, as far as being a part of politics outside of being a paid government employee, and so I got a taste of it there, and learning of our current assembly members vacating the seat that he holds now. It's our seat. All of these seats are our seats, we the people. And then the Spud simultaneously happening. It was kind of maybe just the perfect storm, and it just kind of that was what I needed, the push that. Okay, it's time. It's time for you to get involved. If you don't get involved, then you're just a loudmouth. You're not being effective. And so I actually, it kind of was funny how it worked. So I reached out. This was back February timeframe. I reached out to one of our local Republican groups and just let them know, hey, I'm interested. I understand that District 1 seat's opening up, and I'm thinking about running. And at the time, somebody else was kind of being looked at, and it was I think getting ready to commit.
right.
But that person basically was unable to do it. They weren't able to commit the time at this point in their life, and so at February March timeframe, I said, "Yep, absolutely, I support this person. I know this person. They do a great job." And just let me know where I can help out, right? I can move signs, I can sign wave, that sort of thing. Well, May, I get this call. Basically, I can't do it. You're up. Kind of caught me off guard, and so it's just been fast and furious ever since. So.
Tag, you're it. That was it. You hadn't even really expressed an interest, but it slapped you on the butt and say, you're in, boy. There you go.
I had vocally, I'm very vocal. So people know that I've been interested in this sort of thing, at least some locals. And I think that's really what kind of pushed is, I think some locals, they see me, they know where I stand on issues, and So when this other person stated they weren't going to be able to, or they weren't at a time able to pursue this, there's already another candidate that had submitted their letter, and the data shows that that person does not support conservative values. So here I am.
Right. Sometimes you got to take one for the team. You know what I mean? So
Well, I
that's
wouldn't call it taking one for the team. I'm full on. I'm on board. I am bought in, and
no, and I don't mean that. I just mean that, you've got to go out there and kind of, it's like I said, I wouldn't change the fact that I ran for the assembly and served on the assembly.
mhm.
Would I do it again? No. Okay. So let me just, because I mean, it was something that needed to be done, needed to have the, voice do what needed to do. But at the same time, it is, it's a very, it can be a very rough experience overall,
Sure.
especially when you can watch. I mean, in my area, we had a pretty split assembly in Fairbanks where it was pretty even when I first got on there. And then over the course of 5 years, you just watched it kind of swing until I was the only conservative voice on the entire set. And then I had one other guy that got elected, and that was it. The two of us versus seven. It was like, holy cow. I mean, it hurts. It's painful, man. Watch, what's going on. So it's dedication. That's what it is to run for this and do it. All right, give me your vision here, Michael. We're down to the last 6 or 7 minutes here. By the way, we're talking with Michael Bowles. You could find him at electmichaelbowles.com, BOWLES, electmichaelbowles.com. Give me your vision for the assembly and for the borough. If you had your druthers, and we fast forward 4 or 5 years, and you look back and you say, this is what we did, this is what I'm excited about, what is your vision for the future of the borough?
So one thing I would love to see. So there's a state statute that that has the property tax, right? So the borough really can't do anything other than lowering mill rates. So I, in my mind, with the industry that is coming, and I know some people are saying it's 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out, but I think that we can shore up policy, we can shore up local legislation code to get us to a point where infrastructure is funded on industry, tariffs, and those sorts of things. And I would love to see the property mill rates be dropped down to zero across the board, throughout the borough. That would be something I would love to see. Elders should not have to pay rent in their home. People that have paid their mortgages should not have to pay rent in their homes. We work 30 years to pay off our mortgages. Why are we paying our rent to the government to live in our own home? Um, and so that's something that I would love to see 5-10 years down the line, and that's something that I would work on is that issue. With the massive growth, the people escaping Anchorage, coming out here because we still have liberty out here. I would like to think that we could um, utilize code that's in place, or repeat or basically amend code to assist the borough in ensuring that personal property rights and liberty is maintained. The code exists. It just needs to be utilized. We do have an issue out here in the borough as far as enforcing code. So we have assembly members that like to bring new ordinances to create new code, yet we don't have a system in place, or we're not utilizing a system out here to enforce code. One of
Right.
the big issues that we're dealing with right now is the 75-foot water body setback, right? So this came about on uh, you know kind of more of a simple issue, in my opinion, of where people should and shouldn't build, and it's blown up into this huge thing as far as whether people can have cleared areas on their property, or should they replace riparian areas. Do they need, if this code passes as written, it'll require anybody that wants to build a canoe shack on their own property that lives on a lake to hire an engineer to come out, you know and so things like that are happening, and so I would work towards um
Can I sidebar for just a second? I want you to hold that thought of you will work towards, but let me just say this. This is the problem with government, right? Where you got a single problem. You got areas that are washouts, and you don't want people to lose their structure. So you make a simple rule that maybe we should just build setback. But if somebody wants to build a doghouse or a canoe shed or a boat shack on the edge of the river, knowing that could get washed, but government, no, the answer is black or white. There is no gray area. This is how we end up with where we're at. I'm sorry. I just wanted to comment on it because it infuriates me that this kind of stuff goes on. And then they expect you to pay your taxes. And if you don't, they come down and put a gun to your head and evict you from your own property. That's what bugs me.
Well, first, what'll happen is they'll put an interest on it, and they'll wait for that interest to rise up, and then they'll come in.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, what was I thinking? You got to get the proper procedure of order here.
Correct.
So go ahead.
So that's
Sorry.
my vision. My vision is just small government, maintaining the small government that's been envisioned by our conservative past leadership, and working on maintaining that. So small government, fiscal responsibility, establishing policy and code that promotes fiscal responsibility, that promotes transparency, that gets ahead of issues, not is proactive versus reactive. And our borough manager actually is focused on that. And I understand where he's coming from on this 7 cents excise tax. However, it caught us all off guard right after this whole property assessment raise and stuff. So I really think that he really has great intentions. He's a good guy, but poor timing maybe.
Remember that the nature of government is always more, MOAR, more. It's always the nature of government. That's what it's all about.
And there's nothing wrong with having some fiscal patience. We just need to wait and see. There's a lot happening, and I think that we need to rest. Right, government should happen slowly. It should not happen quickly. There should be waiting times and holding times on anything, any code, any ordinance, any laws that are being passed. It should be well discussed. It should be methodical, and it should take time. Nothing should be crammed down anybody's throat.
Yeah. No, it's a frustrating time, and you also peak something else which will carry over through the end of the hour here as we get done. But we're talking with Michael Bowles. You can find him at electmichaelbowles.com. Go over there and take a look at his stance, his platform. You can contact him. You can donate money. You can do whatever you need to do for that. And again, the early voting starts late October.
Yep.
And then the final vote is on November the 4th. So, Michael Bowles, thank you so much for coming on board and joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. Good talking with you.
Hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Richard, why would you even ask that? So will you work towards a Class 1 borough? Why would you even want to? Why would you want a first-class borough? Why would you want a first-class municipality? I mean, I don't know. I'll let Michael answer that. But why would that even be a question at this point, Michael?
So I'm not prepared to talk about that. I'm a small government guy.
Yeah,
that's just I'm a small government guy.
Do we want to create? Do we want to create? I mean, why would you even? I don't even. Is anybody suggesting that we go to a first class? No, I don't think so. But anyway, you said earlier, you mentioned it, in your vision for the state, and I wanted to just circle back to it real quick before I give you the final word. But you were talking about placing the taxation burden on essentially industry and businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And, quite honestly, I have no problem with that. In fact, I considered for a short bit of time there, because I think property taxes are immoral on private citizens, on, people, on your personal property, on your homes. Property taxes were initially envisioned on like farms and things like that when they produced. In fact, the first versions of the taxation on that was a portion of the proceeds off your crops. That's where the taxation came from. And if the land lay fallow, you didn't get taxed that. You know what I mean? It was more of a tax on what you produced with your land more than anything else. And this idea that we have to tax everybody for their own home, and like you said, people paid off their home for 40 years, yet are still on the hook for the rest of their life ad nauseum to pay for the government. They're basically renting their land from the government. That's just immoral to me.
Yep.
So I would not have a problem with that burden being pushed over onto business, because then it becomes part of that business's expenses every year, and then they can, and then exempt private property. I mean, I'm down with that. What are your thoughts?
So, so people that know me, I don't know if you're a fan of the show Parks and Recreation, but I'm a huge fan of the show. But I've been compared to Ron Swanson on multiple occasions, and I think a lot of what the government does really can be privatized. And I know that's maybe a little bit extreme. The government exists to protect its people and to regulate commerce, right? It doesn't exist to break the backs of its residents or tax its residents into poverty. So how do we, that's what we need to be focusing on, is protecting residents. Part of that is protecting residents in their own homes and then on their own property. Industry is a wonderful thing. We want industry. We want growth. We want people in good homes. However, so for example, MEA utilizes borough right of ways. They are not charged. Free of charge. MEA is utilizing right of ways for their wires. I believe the same thing's happening with NSTAR with LNG. So why isn't the borough charging industry a levy or a tariff to utilize the borough right of ways? And there's a thought, well, they'll just pass that cost on to the customer. Well, maybe, but that's the price of doing business versus the government taxing people, right? So I really think that industry, tariffs on industry, tariffs is a bad word right now, right? But the focus should be on utilizing revenue sources, large revenue sources, versus just piling taxes onto us residents just for breathing the air.
Yeah, no, it's a frustrating thing. And no, I don't want to just single out farms. Somebody just said farmers, and no, I'm not just talking about, I was saying that was the initial, back in the day when the property taxes were first kind of envisioned, that's where they came from. Now, of course, it's everywhere. But yeah, I mean, again, I think that the biggest part is that when people, and I'm thinking specifically about, retirees or people who are, they've paid for their property, they paid their dues, they've done what they need, they shouldn't be taxed out of their homes. And it's happened time and time and time again, where they just can't, they can't afford it, they can't afford it, and the government, if they don't have family to help them take care of it or sell it off or whatever, it just gets swooped up. It's just, it's insane to me. It's absolutely insane. All right. Now we got about a minute here. Final thoughts from you just before I let you go.
So, yep, I would greatly appreciate your support. If you like what you hear, even if you're not in District 1, if you're anywhere in the state, I would greatly appreciate you checking out my website, electmichaelbowles.com. I'm also on social media. Elect Michael Bowles is the Facebook page and Instagram. My wife is actually my campaign manager. She builds websites and does social media management. So she's got all that squared away. I could really use donations, the smallest amount, $5, $10, $15. Everything goes towards working towards helping me get to that seat. And I'm not very good at asking for money and donations, but it's going to take some money to win that seat. That seat's been blue for 24 years, and I'm working to turn that seat red. And I hope that I can get your support on that. Please reach out. info@michaelbowles.com is my email address. So feel free to reach out. If I misspoke on anything, if I missed, as far as any information, let me know. Let me give me an opportunity to correct myself. I'm a human being and I'm going on 3.5 hours of sleep. It was a late assembly meeting. But but no, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really hopeful that we can actually turn this seat red. We need to keep the borough free. We need to keep all this Anchorage, politics outside of our borough, and that's
Yeah.
what I'm working towards.
All right, Michael Bowles, thank you so much for coming on board. We appreciate it. Thank you for being part of it today. Folks, we are out of time. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends. How are you doing? It is just another beautiful day in paradise here on this Wednesday edition of the show. A little cloudy. I could see a little bit of sun, little bit of sunlight rays kind of peeking over the hill this morning. As we got ready, some clouds. Looks like it was going to rain a little bit to the north. Maybe we'll get some. Yesterday, oh man, smoking hot. It was a beautiful day, and it was a beautiful day. So we're ready to do it. Here we are on the other side of. We're now on the downhill, what I consider to be the downhill slope of summer. Yesterday was the median. Now we're on the downhill slope. Everything now, from now, we go right into 2 weeks into August, and then 2 weeks into, so we're going to get all this. We're going to get all this done. We just finished up with Michael Bowles, who was the running for the borough assembly in the MatSu's, and that raised some interesting questions and comments in the chat room. A lot of people are kind of worked up about different things. One of the first questions, though, was one of the big questions was did he support moving to a first class borough? And he said he wasn't ready to talk about that, but he's a small government guy. So I don't know. I took that as meaning no, but at the same time, I would be like, my answer would have been hell no. Why would I want the borough to become even more powerful than it already is? Why would I want to consolidate? Because you'd have to and by the way, you'd have to subsume all the cities in the borough, right? Because for the borough to be a first-class borough, it's a city. A first-class borough is essentially a city and the borough combined into one. But you've got 3 cities, right? You've got Palmer, you've got Wasilla, you got Houston. I mean, Houston being a city is a little bit of a stretch, but you know what I'm saying. You've definitely got Wasilla and Palmer. Why would who's gonna win? You basically subsume all of those governmental entities as well. It's a mess. Who in their right mind would want to do that? And why? I mean, why would you want to do that? Anyway, some interesting stuff. It's interesting stuff for sure. Just an interesting thing for sure. And Frank just said he just got his first check with a new pay raise to $13, the new mandated, minimum wage to $13. Frank just said the government took more out of my check, so no pay raise, just paying more taxes on my labor. Well, you know what? You should feel privileged. You should feel privileged to just help support all of that stuff. Oh, man. It's just, it's insane. All right, we're going to continue here. What are we dealing with here? Let me close some windows and open some other windows. The big story for today was this headline, which I lost my mind over. In, quote, solidarity and resolve, unquote, Anchorage superintendent declares war of resistance against budget cuts. This guy is just so irritating in so many ways. I'm talking about Jared Bryant, who is the superintendent of the Anchorage schools. And we're gonna talk about this at length in just a few minutes, okay? Because it is absolutely infuriating to watch these kind of no neck, pro government. We know better than you. Tax and spend kind of limousine liberals that come into this state and are going to tell us exactly how we need to do things and then chastise us for when things don't work out quite the way that they wanted them to work out. All right. Sorry. This kid. Okay. So, we're going to come back to that because I don't have enough time to get into a full head of steam rant on something like that right now. So let's do something a little more fun. Let's congratulate Congressman Nick Begich, who this week celebrated another notch in the belt, another legislative victory. HR 410, the Alaska Native Vietnam Era Veteran Lands Allotment Extension Act. Ooh, God, that's a mouthful. This makes his fourth bill that he has sponsored and made it through the House in the first 193 days that he's been in office. He has set a record in Congress for the freshman with the most bills passed this year. So not that I necessarily always want to see more bills. I mean, sometimes I'd be happy if somebody went in there and didn't pass any, but instead we're standing in the way of some bills. I mean, I'm just saying for each one of those things. The bipartisan legislation extends the application window for Alaska Native veterans who served during Vietnam to apply for their long overdue land allotments. Begich called the vote an important step towards honoring Alaska's veterans and emphasized the need to fulfill promises made to those who served. He said in a statement, "The men and women who served our nation during the Vietnam War deserve the opportunity to secure the land that they were promised. This legislation extends an important land allotment program and ensures that Alaska Native Vietnam-era veterans will have the time and resources they need. Today's passage of this legislation is paramount for Alaska's Vietnam veterans, and I urge my colleagues in the Senate to take swift action so we can send this bill to the president's desk." That land allotment program, by the way, was one of the reasons why they've extended it is because it's had a horrible success rate. The legislation addresses the long-standing injustice faced by Alaska Native Vietnam veterans, thousands of whom were unable to apply for their congressionally promised land allotments because they were serving overseas during the eligibility period. As of early 2025, out of more than 2,000 eligible veterans, only 41 applications have been certified, and just 18 veterans have actually received their conveyances of land out of 2,000. So yeah, this is this is a good thing. But again, Nick is down there, winning friends and making enemies. That's what he's doing. He's down there, making a mess. And I think that's what we elected him for. I think that's, kind of what we wanted when we put all this together. On the other hand, just when we thought she was swinging back our way, Senator Lisa Murkowski is now opposing $9 billion in spending cuts as the Senate advances the rescission package, which means the rescission is it's basically taking money, removing money that's already been approved. So yesterday, they moved a step closer to approving the president's $9.4 billion bill, which would, and it was a 50-50 split. The bill, which was pushed by both the Trump administration and DOJ under Musk, would cancel $8.3 billion in foreign aid and $1.1 billion in funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. That's the full 9.4. So, but 8.3 of that is foreign aid. It represents some of Trump's efforts to scale back federal spending, particularly on programs the administration has deemed as non-essential or misaligned with their America First priorities. So who voted against this bill moving out of the Senate? Well, Suzanne Collins, Mitch McConnell, and Lisa Murkowski. Those three. But that left it at a 50-50 split. J.D. Vance cast the deciding vote. The legislation advanced. Okay, so it's gone. Now they've got to begin formal debate. That was just a move to move the bill out of the committee and onto the floor. So now it's got to be discussed on the floor of the Senate. And so the next hurdle is going to begin that formal debate, which also requires 51 votes. Where is it going? What is it going to be doing? If you want to keep this, if you want to keep things rolling, if now's the time to bring the discussion up and start to, but this 8 million, even if you wanted to keep the Corporation for Public Broadcasting funding, which, well, I mean, I've got a dog in this fight. I'll be honest with you. There is probably some area for especially for rural and, other stations that have public broadcasting. I understand that there's some necessity for that, but at the same time, I hate seeing government dollars going to compete directly in something that is still a private interest. But that, it is what it is. It's part of the. But again, even if you wanted to keep the 1.1 billion in Corporation for Public Broadcasting, there's 8.3 million in foreign aid that could be cut out. Why don't we? Now, under the fast track recessions process, the legislation must be approved by both chambers of Congress within 45 days of the president's formal request, which puts the deadline for this for Friday midnight. They've got to get this thing done by Friday midnight. They got it passed out of the House 214 to 212. And so we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens on this, but it sure would be nice if every now and then Lisa could surprise us twice in 1 year. That would sure be nice. Twice in 1 year. Just at least to cut out at this point, I don't even care about the CPV thing, just eliminate the foreign aid. $8.3 billion in foreign aid. Yes, cut that stuff out. We don't need it. All right. Well, we are ready to go. I got some other stories, but I'm going to get into this thing with Jared Bryant, who is now fighting a war of resistance against budget cuts. Oh, and by the way, the city of Anchorage has decided to fix their daycare problem. By how? By getting out of the way. This is an interest. All right, we're going to be back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of
tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Give me a second here. What do we got here? Another woke bill by Begich. Frank, are you okay, man? Just asking for a friend. I'm going over here to see what's going on. Was it true that the schools just cut even more after the veto? Yeah. After the veto and the loss of federal funds. I thought you might get a little wound up talking about taxes, Michael, since it's been a while since you've released that tight wound spring. Dunleavy veto again? No, this is the same veto before. More teachers being fired. This is just, again, more posturing and, outrage on his part. Yeah. ASD, Bryant is doubling down. This is Kevin said. Bryant is doubling down. Hey, I have an idea. Let's cut all the teachers, increase class sizes, and let the administrators teach all the kids. Yeah. Let's see. War resistance. Yeah, I know Harold just keeps going on and on about Barbara Haney. he's like checking. Oh, well, what's your resume, Barbara? Which is what I love, when he comes in here, like he's spouting stuff off like, oh, he's got all this experience and, blah. And then somebody who flies planes for a living or drives trucks or, is a pharmacist couldn't possibly understand all these deep learning things that he's got. Jesus. Barbara Haney is a professor at the university in economics, Harold. Sometimes, man, you just like when you don't just step in it, you just like jump in like right up to your chest. What was I thinking? But you do you, boo. You just do you. Actually, per the ASD superintendent, more positions cut. How many people? We don't know. Again, how many positions that didn't have people in them? Because this is the same stuff that they pulled before, right? Where they said 400, it's 400 positions, but how many people actually? Turns out that it was less than 100 people or right around 100 people cut. Wasn't that what it was when it was all said and done? It was 40 positions or it was 400 positions, but a lot of that was through attrition and everything else. And when it was all said and done, wasn't it less than 100 that were actual human bodies that were cut out of there? Okay. For some reason, I can't use the reply, Kevin. That's great news. Okay. What happened to Harold? He used to be coherent, now just divisive. He just, it's just what he is. And every time you mention him, he gets a little stronger. He who must not be named. He who must not be named. Don't use his name. He will only get stronger. Anyway, don't ever go full. Yeah. That's how it was. That's how it was in Nikolaevsk. The administration taught the kids, but it wasn't great. That he was not being serious about that. Okay, that was a facetious comment. Is don't take that seriously. That's what I'm saying here. All right. He who must not be named. We're going to continue here. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff that YouTube that do it. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay. Oh, man. It's a little nutty in the chat room today. A little nutty. So this story caught my eye, and I'm just like, okay, this guy, he just doesn't understand how this whole thing is supposed to work. Now, let me clarify and let me proceed any of my following commentary. Let me preface it. That's the word I was looking for. Not proceed, but preface it. You're allowed to have your opinion, and you're allowed to state your opinion. Okay. You're allowed to have an opinion and be vocal about it. Yes. Even if you're a public employee, and you should, there's certain exceptions to that rule, within military, but in this case, Dr. Jarrett has the perfect right to have his opinion and to be vocal about his opinion. Now, I guess we can make an argument about whether he should be using resources of the school to push his point of view, but that's a whole nother thing. But again, so let me preface the whole thing with saying he has his right to his point of view. Now, I'm going to say that his point of view is wrong and mostly politically motivated, but he has the right to that. So just weeks before this is in, and by the way, I noticed, again, going back to our talking points earlier, was it Monday that we were talking about how I was saying it's interesting how Must Read Alaska seems to have more news about what's kind of happening on the political scene than any other paper in the state. Maybe the Beacon but the Beacon focuses more on the national side issues. So, but I mean, anyway, this is not a story you'll find in the ADN, or if you're not reading Must Read, you should put it to your reading list along with, the Landmine, the ADN, the Alaska Beacon, the Alaska Current, and your local papers, Peninsula Clarion, Frontiersman, Newsminer, whatever. You should add that because, again, there are stories in there that you won't find on those that you won't find anywhere else. Anyway, Must Read Alaska. In solidarity and resolve, Dr. Jared Bryant has declared war, a war of resistance against budget cuts. Now, how he's planning on waging a war of resistance against budget cuts when he doesn't have the purse strings is questionable, although I can guarantee it will include using the public as stalking horses for this. Right? I mean, this is what they do. They're going to make some cuts and then beat their chest, rend their clothing and beat their chests and say, "Look at what they've done to us." So he just issued a scathing letter to staff and families yesterday, sharply criticizing state and federal leaders over what he describes as a coordinated failure of leadership, meaning, it's all intentional. It's coordinated. They did this on purpose. Coordinated. He said that's forcing widespread layoffs and service cuts across Alaska's largest school district. In the letter, he announced that ASD has begun issuing layoff notices and reassignments district-wide. Okay. Attributing the disruption to, quote, unstable decision-making, delayed funding, and systemic neglect. or negligence, rather. Sorry, not neglect, but negligence, systemic negligence from both Juneau and Washington, D.C. You know, there's a lot of projection going on here. There's a tremendous amount of projection going on here. Unstable decision-making and systemic negligence. This is pot and kettle time, folks. The Anchorage School District knew, first of all, I mean, we could rewind the clock a little bit here back to COVID time, when they took all that money, all that federal money from COVID, and were warned, were told, do not spend this on reoccurring stuff because it's going to be a short-lived deal. This should be for one-time expenditures. And what did they do? They immediately shifted it into reoccurring costs. And then when the money dried up, they acted all shocked that we don't have any more money. They also knew that they were going to lose. They lost 7,000 students over the course of about a dozen years. And they're shocked that they're not getting enough money to offset that and still keep all the bill. Their schools are at 50% capacity. 50%. Which means they could consolidate them down to where they would all be at 80% capacity. You could close a bunch of schools and still have, but they don't do that. That is the unstable decision making. We have fewer students and fewer money, fewer funds coming in, and yet we want to maintain our lifestyle at exactly where we were. I mean, again, that's likening it back to the household is like, well, we used to make 100,000, but now we make 60,000 a year, but we want to live that $100,000 a year lifestyle. So we're just going to keep trying to do. It doesn't work. So he signed, he goes on with this letter. This letter is not just an update. It's a warning, a call to action. And then he signs it, in solidarity and resolve, my comrades. I mean, right? I mean, it's just. Sorry, I'm cracking myself up back here. So, according to the Bryant, the school district is reeling from a combination of federal funding freeze and recent state budget increases that were trimmed back in a move that apparently he didn't see coming. I mean, this is the thing. You didn't see this coming. You didn't read between the lines. You didn't look at what the legislators were saying. You didn't look at what the commentator. What did I say? I mean, my God, I'm just a radio talk show host, right? But even I could read the tea leaves to think the governor is going to, I mean, I'm betting money that the governor is going to veto this, right? But in a move that apparently he didn't see coming, the governor vetoed a chunk of it, not all of it. You still got $500 per student more. Then on top of that, the Department of Ed on the 3rd of July froze $46 million in federal grants to Alaska, including $14 million earmarked for Anchorage. He said that freeze strips funding from essential services, which he calls, this is again after school programs, special education, English learner services, and Alaska Native student services. That's what it's going to, that's what they're going to cut. Then he blamed the governor for vetoing some of the massive increases that legislators had passed in education funding. Again, you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. He detailed how ASD had already eliminated 42 central office positions. You notice he didn't say employees. You notice he didn't say layoffs. You notice he didn't talk about people actually. They always are very careful. This is the whole thing that was it Kai Holland? No, it was anyway, the superintendent of schools there in the MatSu's, when they talked about, oh, we're 400 positions, and people are like, oh my God, you're losing 400 teachers. Well, no, when you actually hold their feet to the fire on the other end, that means that they were positions that were open but not filled, and they closed most of them. And then due to, to a lot of them were absorbed due to retirement and people moving on. And it turns out in the end that they only had to actually eliminate something like 75 or 80 individual people. And some of them were moved to other departments or other areas out of this 400 positions cut. Right? Remember, words matter, folks. You always got to read all the words. So detailed, Brian already said he eliminated 42 central office positions, not people, positions, cutting over $30 million in salaries and services, drawing down reserves below policy minimums, and increasing class sizes. If these are central office positions, how does that increase class sizes? Because these are these are not teachers in the I got questions. Even with the measures that he just outlined, he said they were insufficient to absorb the latest wave of cuts. This is the quote, though. These are not abstract policy outcomes. These are real people. These are real losses. And the students will feel the difference when they walk into school in August. That's the only time they've mentioned the students in this whole thing, right? But again, this is not abstract policy outcomes. They are people. See, this is what it's about. It's about protecting the people who are in the institution. It's not about the outcomes. It's not about producing a good product and doing best by what's best for the children. It's about protecting the people who work in the system, making sure that they all have their jobs and keep their jobs at the same level that they were. Again, coming from the private sector, you might have a hard time wrapping your brain around, because while you care about the people who are in your organization, you also understand you have to make the bottom line. And if they're not producing what they need to produce, then you may need to change how things are done, which means you may need to let some people go or lay some people off. It's unfortunate. I mean, I've fired people. It's not a fun thing to do. Not the highlight of my week when I have to fire somebody, right? Whether I like them or not. It's not a fun time to throw people's lives into chaos. But at the same time, you're responsible for delivering an outcome on the other side. And yet all we've seen in the education industry is this protectionism of what they're doing. And nobody, except for, I guess, conservatives or some other people on the outside, nobody is really pointing to this outcome on the other side of 51 out of 53. Right? These scholastic achievements, nobody's pointing to that. Why? Because it makes them look bad and they could maybe lose some of their, So, so Bryant concludes with the thing, this is what happens when systems fail students. No, you've already failed students. This is not the system failing students. This is you as a leader. This is you as a school district, as a school board. This is you failing to make the proper decisions to keep things rolling. The system had already failed the students. That's why we're scoring at 51 out of 53. That's why we have a 76% graduation rate. That's why, 60% of the kids who get out have to take remedial math to go back into college. That's why how many people can't. This is what the system has already failed. This is what happens, Jared Bryant, when you fail as a leader, when the school board fails in its leadership position, when they refuse to acknowledge the simple fact that you've got fewer students, you're projected to continue to have in the future have fewer students, and you need to start to consolidate stuff down and plan for that. And that's just not happening. This is what happens when the system fails, students. We're not just managing a crisis, we are resisting the slow dismantling of public education in Alaska. For the love of God, are you kidding me? This is how you're going to phrase this whole thing, the slow dismantling of the public educations? You guys are so much money, $28,000 per student. $28,000 per student is a dismantling of the public education system? That's some
That was just BS.
That's just some Bert Stedman right there. But don't worry. He's not going to remain the district will not be silent. They will not be silent in the face of what he calls reckless governance decisions. Oh, for the... This guy has lost his ever-loving mind. Oh, by the way, I should point out that in all that, stuff that he cut, note that they did not cut their DEI office, nor the 111 personnel in the IT office either. Interesting. I can't continue. I cannot continue on this because I might blow a gasket. All right, we got to go. We're going to be back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back with more here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We will return in just a moment.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Give me just a second here, folks. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. I got so worked up. All right-wing MAGA bloggers, the Alaska Current, the ADN, and Jeff Landfield are all right-wing MAGA bloggers. Sometimes it just says things that I don't think, Okay. Yeah, Clayton Holland. Yeah, Jeannie says closing the schools is heresy. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. They can't even fathom that. if half the students in the state moved out tomorrow and they were left with buildings that were empty, they still wouldn't want to close those schools. Still wouldn't want to do it. It would, again, it's heresy. According to the FAQ, which David also has linked up there, where it says, the FAQ says most positions that are affected are not classroom teachers. Instead, they are student support positions that assist the classroom teachers in their daily work. It will also reduce training opportunities at the beginning of a year for new teachers and throughout the school year. What is this? These student support positions are all now, again, it's been 40 years since I was in high school. But the student support position, I don't remember those being in there when I was young. Do you? I don't remember any of those being in there. Jeannie says, Michael is speaking my truth. Stop the insanity. How do we get the NE out of Alaska? And do they realize that the $200 veto is just for this year? Next year, the BSE increase will include a full $700 unless the governor vetoes it there. Yeah. Yeah. How can you cut the special ed department, when most of that is federal funding? I don't know. Yeah. Superintendent Bryant should really worry about the feds removing more funds due to the DEI function and the transgender administrative rules. Yeah, I mean, I would think I would be really worried about that. That if he refuses to conform to the federal policies for the federal money, and think about all the other schools that could be affected. I mean, if it's not a direct grant to Anchorage, what if it's a grant to the whole state and the federal government refuses it because they want to hold on to their DEI policy, and it doesn't just affect Anchorage, it affects all those other schools. I'm not bashing the schools. He's like, oh, I'm bashing the schools. I am bashing the education system, not the schools themselves, not the individual teachers or the people. I'm saying something's fundamentally broken, which you've acknowledged. So, and I've never, ever blamed the teachers. Those are your words. Those are the words that you keep using and trying to put into everybody's mouth. Out of the mouth speaks the heart. Maybe that's what you think, because we're not blaming teachers here at all. Let's see. Yeah, sorry. Systems don't fail students. Leadership fails students. Yes. Thank you for linking that, David. Appreciate it. There we go. We're about 10 seconds out here. I'm not quite caught up on the thing here. Oh, here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty-Based, Free Thinking Radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. Here we go. I'm sorry. The chat room has just been hysterical here. Where with all this comment. And in fact, one of the best comments so far was the reminder from Representative Kevin McCabe, where he said, do they realize that they, again, Jared Bryant and the whole school establishment, et cetera, they all realize that the $200 veto is just for this year, right? Next year, the BSE increase will include the full $700. Now, unless the governor vetoes a chunk of that as well, but this is just a one-time veto on a forever reoccurring thing. This is it. It's going. And David actually pulled out some quotes from the FAQ that came out with a letter that from the ASD's website. And they're going on and on about how you're going to lose all these positions. And it said most positions affected are not classroom teachers. Instead, they're student support positions that assist the classroom teachers in their daily work, which yeah, I just, I don't know. The, and David just posted something else saying the superintendent is in a real box. The teachers union is asking for a 15% pay raise for 1 year going in. That's their opening ask. Probably hoping for at least 5% for 1 year, maybe 5% a year for 1 year. I mean, and they also want the districts to kick in $25,000 per union member for health insurance. I mean, that's part of the problem. Again, who's driving the bus on this? Not the teachers themselves. Not even probably most of the workers. The unions are the ones that are in the driver's seat on this deal. That's what they're pushing on right now. And oh, by the way, as I mentioned earlier, if you are not complying, remember the school district when President Trump came out with his executive order about, federal mandates and DEI and these kind of things, and the school district stamped its foot and said, "We're not kowtowing. We're going to resist." I guess it was kind of more the same, right? We're going to keep our things. We're going to keep our DEI. We're going to keep all this stuff. And then they clutch their breast and act like wounded animals when the federal stuff starts to dry up, which it could get even worse. I mean, if they don't want to comply, the federal government under the Trump administration is, they could have a problem. Right? Because what if they withhold more of those federal funds? And what if the federal funds withheld because of the behavior of what's going on in the Anchorage School District? What if that affects grants to the whole state, not just the Anchorage School District, but to every school district in the state? I mean, there's ramifications here. There really is. There's a lot of, but again, they seem to have forgotten, who's in charge. So it's, well, it's interesting. It's interesting. The whole thing is super interesting. Now, on top of that, yeah, how much money comes from the federal government to pay for schools? I don't know that number right off the top of my head, but I know it's a significant amount. It is a big chunk. But I mean, we ourselves are paying $2.6 billion for educating 135,000 students. So it's a lot, it's a lot. This other story, do I have enough time? Oh, I mean, I could just keep ranting on this whole thing with him. There's a article in the ADN from day before yesterday. Amid a child care crisis, Anchorage officials are set to vote on loosening daycare regulations. They found a way to fix this. I mean, shock, and lo and behold, they found a way to help offset the child care crisis. By the way, a crisis that they made worse in Anchorage by making this is a whole show. this whole segment right here is a whole show. But let's just say, basically, they're putting together this ordinance that deals with several regulations that are relatively strict in municipal code and drops them back to align with what the state require. So Anchorage is like, my God, we had 250 licensed childcare facilities and now we're down to 180, right? I mean, they lost a chunk, man. They lost a full quarter, almost a third of all their childcare facilities. And they're like, we just don't understand how that happens. Well, how it happens is when it was already hard for the childcare, the licensees, the state regulations, all that kind of stuff, and then you took and made some of your regulations in the muni even more stringent. Oh, surprising. That's what happens. So now they're going to roll back those regulations to align with what the state. Brilliant. On top of that, they are eliminating the annual licensure fees from the health department, cutting a requirement that child care business have liability insurance, and raising the child to staff ratios to bring them into parity with state standards, and removing the requirement that 2 caregivers must be on hand anytime children are present, getting rid of a highly specific requirement for bathroom designs and layouts, and loosening inspection rules for playground equipment. I mean, this is just like all this thing. Let's just, come on. Let people decide that they, I see them, I look at the facility, I look at the people that I'm going to leave my kid with. I'll make it. I think it sounds good. But this is all, it's like the shocking that we made our regulations tougher than the state of Alaska. We lost a quarter of our people in 4 years, quarter of our providers for childcare. And now we can't figure out where's it all going? How are we going to take care of these kids? Oh, please, state of Alaska, come in and give us $36 million to make it happen. This is government breaking your legs and then handing you a crutch and saying, aren't you glad we were here to give you the crutch? You broke my legs to begin. Hey, we're just here to help. We are just here to help. That's what it's all about. Okay, well, hey, ho, ho. It's time to go. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Michelle Overstreet joins us in hour 1 from my house in MatSu's. In hour 2, Bernadette Wilson. Sorry. Bridget Jones. Bernadette Wilson joins us in hour 2. We got to go. We will see you guys tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well, enjoy this day, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. This is the day that the Lord has made. So enjoy it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Okay. Federal government funding for Alaska K through 12, $131 million. $131 million. That's a chunk. Yeah, we're going to have to, something's going to have to change, folks. There's just no two ways about it. Something is going to have to fundamentally change in how we deal with this and how we look at kids and how they're taught. It's just it. It's where we're at. All right, my friends. Well, be kind, love one another, live well. We will see you guys tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you then. Have a groovy day. Love you.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.